Hey there, it's Trudy, One Grounded Angel. This is a weekly angel card reading for the week starting the 6th of September through to the 12th, 2021. We have a Virgo, a new moon happening on Tuesday. It's a good time to set goals around health and well-being because that's very Virgo. Virgo is also the sign of organisation and planning. So if you feel like you've maybe dropped the ball in those areas, maybe it's a good time to get organised about getting organised and set some goals in that domain. Virgo is also a sign of service. So if you've been thinking about ways that you can give back to the community or the world at large, also a great area to focus on if you are thinking of setting goals for the next 6 months. And I know with all that's going on in the world, a lot of us are just trying to keep our head above water at the moment. But for those of us who like having something to work on, that might be a bit of inspiration for you. So that's Tuesday, or I think it's Monday night in the US. So this is the card for Monday, books. Never something that I don't enjoy seeing, although it doesn't come up very often in these daily card pulls. Anyway, for some people in a personal reading, this card would be a message for them to write a book, if that's something they've been thinking about doing. For others, it's about study more generally, looking into things, researching. It could be about readings. Sometimes people get this card and they don't really know what it means, but then someone will recommend, or a couple of people will recommend a book to them, and that's kind of the prompt for them to jump on that. And there might be something in that book they need to know, particularly if it's a non-fiction book. So the other thing to keep in mind with this is it's about communicating more generally, and we had Archangel Gabriel come through for Sunday last week. Gabriel is, their domain is all about communication, self-expression. So for those of you who in a larger sense are getting called to share messages with the world, it's part of your life purpose, perhaps spiritual messages, perhaps healing, perhaps it's about what you've been through in your life to help others with, who may be struggling with similar events or struggles that you have been through. Maybe this is a prompt to do that. If it's something you've been thinking about, to look at, starting a blog or sharing your story on social media or sharing messages somewhere. It doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as you do it, if that's something you're comfortable with. Now, when I started getting messages like that, I freaked out because that was not something I wanted to do. I'm not comfortable, I'm an introvert, I'm not comfortable being public, as it were. So if that's the case for you, you might want to work with someone who can help you with some of the fears that are associated with that. There may be traumas around, you've stepped out or been exposed in some way throughout your life, and there's been some sort of consequence in terms of maybe you were shamed for it, or maybe you came from a family where the culture was about we have to play small to be safe. You'll need some help working through that to get comfortable sharing your message. And often it's the people who've got the most to share who don't do it, who don't share it because they're scared. They're the ones who feel like they've got the most to lose for some reason. And it could be past life stuff as well. A lot of people in many lifetimes have paid a consequence, particularly if they've been women in past lives, where they've spoken up or been visible in some way, and there's been a punishment for it. We've all been different genders in different lifetimes, by the way. Tuesday's card, Shower of Abundance. Everybody loves seeing this one. It's all about money. You can see the gold coins sort of emanating from the hands here. What is interesting to me about this picture is you can't really see where the coins have come from. They're coming from her hands, but we don't see where they came from before then. And that's really a powerful image of how money comes to us. We think it comes from our boss, from our partner, from our, bank account. But those are just channels. The money actually comes from the universe. And so we need to remember that there is an infinite supply. We'll always have enough. But when people look at their bank account and go, I don't have enough, which is understandable, and that may be accurate for that moment, but that's not the case for forever. And sometimes people really get locked into this mentality of, I can only see this much, that there must be only that much, instead of trusting that more will be supplied as they go forward. We have to make sure we take a long range view and not let our financial beliefs be limited by how things are right now. And I know that sounds quite privileged, so this is very, very general. I totally understand a lot of us are under pressure at the moment, myself included. So this is not to overlook, or I'm not trying to minimise what people are going through right now. I'm just sort of pointing out that we need to try and elevate our views or our beliefs about money, which will help support a better flow. It's not going to fix, whatever struggles you're dealing with, but it will certainly help. And we don't want to make sure we're not inadvertently blocking that flow of abundance for us. This card is really saying to you, you're going to have enough of what you need. It doesn't say you're going to be wealthy, and that's not necessarily important to the universe. But if we believe that we don't have enough, we're kind of sending out a request for the flow to slow down. The other ways that this comes up is about other resources. So it can be about other material resources. Less commonly, it's about emotional resources. People who feel like they don't have enough support, there's not enough love, not enough opportunities, all those sorts of things. But usually it's material, and specifically within that area would be money. And as I say to everybody, trust your intuition on what is resonating with you. Wednesday, total key change here. Innocence. So this is all about the blame and shame combo. So if this often comes up for people who are dealing with a grudge or a resentment towards someone, and it's not to say that you are wrong to have that grudge. It's probably entirely understandable and justified. And perhaps no one has ever told you that before. Maybe no one has ever seen your side of it or understood where you were coming from. And if that's the case, I really feel for you because I know what that's like. But this is really saying that it might be helpful to try and understand where that person was coming from. Doesn't make it okay. There's no excuse for what happened. But if you can understand the fears that they are carrying, the way they were parented or not, what they believe about the world, it might help you understand that they're human who, yes, made some mistakes, but is not necessarily... I think sometimes we go into this kind of binary transaction where people are either good or bad, and it's not particularly helpful. We're all just human beings who make good choices, bad choices, somewhere in between. So just trying to recognise the humanity in that person. What you do with that is up to you, and you may still continue to hold the grudge, but making sure you're not demonising them, because that's just exhausting. And this is about you, not them anyway. What's going to be helpful for you? Maybe not carrying the mantle of that, resentment, which can be really heavy. It might be about you. Are you shaming yourself for a choice you made or didn't make? That regret kind of category that could be coming up here. Are you beating yourself up for not being quote unquote perfect, or for something you feel you lack or you perceive as inadequate in some way? And yeah, a lot of people do this, and it often comes up for people who were raised by really critical parents who probably thought, again, this is where the innocence message comes through around the parents. For the parents' perspective, they thought they were doing that child a service. They were helping teach them how to be better, maybe, through criticism. Maybe that's how they were raised. It doesn't actually work, but maybe they didn't know that. And now that child is growing up self-criticising because it makes them feel it's very familiar. And it's, it feels like that's what you're supposed to do, is to beat yourself up for and trying to be perfect and to really berate yourself, and that will make you a better person. Evidence shows it's not helpful. If you want to change, if you want to make yourself a better person, the more helpful approach is self-compassion. I know I've talked about that a lot. So, look at whether you are shaming yourself for not being, a bikini model on Instagram, or not being the mum who's apparently got all her shiz together. Just really be aware of how you might be potentially shaming yourself instead of offering yourself compassion, which is a much greater motivation and a better route to change. And maybe change is not even that important anyway. Maybe the change is just the way you see yourself, and understanding that you're the human being who's doing the best they can. Thursday's card is peace. Obviously the image of the dove, very strong on that card. So the message here says peace comes from remembering that only love is real. What I like about this is this card deck is all messages from the archangels. This is Archangel Chamuel. I think I'm saying that right. And Shemuel is someone you call on when you've lost something. Could be something really low grade, like your phone, right through to something bigger, like you've lost a connection that you're looking for, or a sense of purpose in your life. That's something that's missing. So it just makes me wonder, that connection there, whether this is about us finding the peace that's already within us, because often we think of peace as something that we need to add in, a bit like a exercise that you add to your life. Oh, just add some peace. But in fact, the peace is already here. It's just that we're so busy beating ourselves up. We're so busy worrying about the future. We're so busy trying to be productive that we have stepped away from that, and really we're operating from a different energy instead of bringing ourselves back to that peace state. Now, we can't live in that peace state all the time. We've got things to do, but we need to make sure we visit it regularly, because it really helps reset. It helps bring through the clarity. It helps us make decisions, and it's just good for our overall well-being. So this is not about getting yourself into a place where you just float around and everything's serene and tranquil. No, we are living in the real world. That's, my whole thing is grounded, Angel, the grounded messages. So this is very much about how you can step into that peaceful state. And often the best way to do that is by looking at what's going on here, the mental noise, turning down the volume on that constant and frankly unhelpful, most of the time, chatter. So what can you do to bring back some peace, even if it's just 5 minutes today? And how could that make a big impact in your day? One thing that I've been trying to do, and I go in and out of doing this, I must admit, it's not something that I am able to do all the time or even regularly, but trying to be present where I am instead of thinking about the next thing or whatever's going on. Just trying to be present. What are the things, mindfulness basically, what are the things I can see right now? What is going on around me right now, and just appreciating those little things. Friday's card is Uplift Your Thoughts. I don't love the way this card is worded, so I will, as always, translate it the way that is meaningful to me, or that resonates with me, and hopefully that resonates with you. But of course, you should always take what is the strongest message for you. It's really about the relationship between your mindset and between what you attract. And the simplest way I can put it is to focus on the donut, not on the hole. And that's not, I really want to make it clear, I'm not advocating for toxic positivity here. I'm not suggesting we pretend that things are wonderful all the time, that we overlook the problems. Again, not super realistic. It's just about making sure that the things that are missing, or the things that are challenging us, are not dominating that landscape of our minds. So making sure that we are bringing back attention on a regular basis to the things that are good, the blessings. A bit like I said earlier about, being present and enjoying what's around us, the gratitude practice. It does help us have a more peaceful mindset. That seems to be a big theme. And just changing the way we perhaps look at things, because when we're looking for problems all the time, we're in that fight or flight mode, that whole belief system that I have to be constantly on guard against problems so that I can be safe. And it just means that we miss out on all the good things that are happening, and sometimes it means we overreact to problems that are actually not there. Wow, this is a beautiful image. Imagine, it's very crown chakra-esque in terms of its colour scheme. So we're going into our watery type energy here. So the Scorpios, the Cancers, the Pisceans will be loving this. Very much about doing something creative. That's one way to look at it. Looking at creative solutions to problems instead of trying to follow the regular script or regular protocols. Doing a bit of daydreaming, a little bit of blue sky dreaming, blue sky thinking, I should say. That sounds really corporate, sorry, but pretentious. And just looking at, I think what's coming through here is looking at what's possible rather than looking at what's materially in front of us. I talk about this a lot whenever there's a miracle card coming through. We tend to focus on what we can see, forgetting how much else is out there that we don't know about yet. we can be panicking about a particular situation where we haven't got enough of something, I don't know, enough support for a situation. Then the universe knows that tomorrow this particular person is going to be calling you to offer you their support. But you are living in the moment of what's going on and thinking that's the rest of your life. There's never going to be enough. So just remembering that what's going on right now is not the rest of your life. I think that's one really important approach. And the other is realising that there's much more possible than what we can see, and just try to imagine the possibilities that are there rather than letting your mindset be limited by what you can actually touch or see tangibly in front of you. That's not the full picture. That's not everything. We can't disregard all of that beautiful possibility. Getting into flow, I guess, is a beautiful way to put that. Sunday's card, I still haven't learned how to pronounce this goddess's name. Arakura, I'm going to say. The message is blossoming. We had this last Monday, very popular card. People loved it when I posted it on the gram. And it says you were just getting started, so have patience with yourself and the process and do not give up. This is a repetition of that theme that was so strong last week, that idea of staying the course, doing the work, keep going. It's not over yet. Just because it hasn't worked out yet doesn't mean it's not going to. Keep doing the work, keep going. It's going to be okay. You just can't see it yet. And that's another example of how there's much more possible than what we can see. We think nothing ever works out because it hasn't worked out so far, but the universe can see that things are going to turn the corner very soon. And so you're getting the message to keep going. You're going to blossom at some point. You just can't see it yet. That is what faith literally is about, believing in things we can't see yet. It's what we're called to do. So I know it's hard, and I absolutely struggle with this myself. So I think mindset stuff is strong. It's one of the messages here. And really looking at how we can bring in more peace in terms of maybe it's the way we reframe a source of resentment or a struggle that we're facing in a relationship maybe. Or maybe it's the peace in terms of how much time we're spending really overwhelmed by worry and the things that are maybe not where you want them to be just yet. So interesting week. And as I said, there's a Virgo new moon on Tuesday, which might make it a good time to start thinking about what you do want to create. And Virgo is quite a practical sign. So, that can bring through the structure of how you want to create it and how that way you can sort of invite the universe to support you because you're working on practical ways to move towards something. And when we take action, the universe tends to respond with the energy to support us. Lots going on. Thanks very much for being here. If you want to know more about my work, my website is www.onegroundedangel.com, onegroundedangel.com. My Instagram, as I mentioned, I do post these cards each day at One Grounded Angel. My Facebook page is One Grounded Angel. And the best way to reach me is going to my website and filling out the contact form. Thanks everybody and have a good week.